Recording. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am glad you are here. So as we get started, I would like to remind everyone to mute themselves. And let's just take a couple of breaths to fully get here. Appreciating that we're carving out this time for ourselves. And settling into our seats. And feeling supported wherever it is that we're sitting. So this week's Parsha is Toldot. And I'm going to share a brief outline of the Parsha. And then we're going to see where we're going to go. So this week, you know, as all these weeks of Genesis, it's chock full of interesting family dynamics. And this week we're focusing on Rebecca and Isaac. And the Parsha starts with Rebecca having a difficult pregnancy, and she hears a prophecy and then ultimately gives birth to twins. And parental favoritism ensues, and the boys clearly have a difficult time with one another, and Esau sells his birthright to Jacob. Later in the Parsha, Isaac and Rebecca visit King Abimelech, and Isaac says that Rebecca is his sister. We've heard that line before, haven't we? And then at the end of the Parsha, we have Rebecca orchestrating this deception so that Jacob receives the blessing of the firstborn from Isaac on his deathbed. So it's a complex Parsha and filled with deceptions. So we are going to look at the midah, or soul trait, of emet, truth, as a way to try to understand the Parsha and what's going on, and a way to figure out what lessons might be in this Parsha for us. In the Musar Torah commentary, this week's Parsha commentary is written by Rabbi Lisa Goldstein. She was one of my teachers and is a former executive director at IJS. And she opens her commentary with this paragraph, and I quote, "Toldot is a troubling portion for those of us who are seeking guidance on how to live an upright, ethical life. Indeed, it seems more attuned to those with a Machiavellian orientation toward getting what they want. Upon first reading, Toldot is an account of falsehood upon falsehood, deceit upon deceit, as the members of Isaac and Rebekah's family each act for their own personal gain." Clearly, there's a difficult relationship between Esau and Jacob. Esau was the firstborn. He's outdoor oriented, he's active, he loves hunting, and he's Isaac's favorite son. Jacob, the younger twin, is a homebody, and he's quiet and he's reflected, and he's favored by Rebecca, their mother. So so that's kind of the background, and it's important to have hold that as the foundation for everything else that we're going to be talking about. But in some ways, this Parsha reminds me of some Shakespearean plays where there's deception and trickery regarding who's which character. And for me, in some of those plays, I've really had trouble keeping the characters straight. And that's what's happening here. There's a lot of deception and a lot of trickery. So the first deception is the trickery that Jacob plays on Esau, who's hungry and tired after being out hunting. And Jacob compels Esau to sell his birthright in order to get a plate of food. A bit later, Isaac and Rebekah go to visit Abimelech, who's the king of the Philistines, in order to escape a famine. And he pretends that Rebekah is his sister because he is afraid that Abimelech would kill him and take Rebekah as his wife. And then there's the big deception involving Rebekah and Jacob colluding after Jacob's initial mild resistance. They collude to deceive Isaac into giving Jacob the blessing that was really due to Esau as the firstborn. And some commentators suggest that Isaac was actually in on the deception and pretended to be tricked. So as Rabbi Lisa points out, the truth about truth is that it's not always so simple. And she suggests that the truth is best understood, or is understood from a midrash. And I'm going to read about this midrash. Rabbi Shimon taught that when the Blessed Holy One decided to create the first human, the ministering angels divided into opposing blocks, some of whom said that humans should not be created, while others said that humans indeed should be created. The angel of loving kindness and the angel of justice argued in favor of the creation of humans who would strive to do acts of loving kindness and justice. But the angel of truth and the angel of peace disagreed. The angel of peace argued that humans would be entirely made up of conflict. And the angel of truth argued that humans would be entirely made up of lies. In response, the Blessed Holy One flung the angel of truth to the earth, whereupon all the other ministering angels gathered round and said, "But Master of all the worlds, is not truth your own seal? Raise truth back up from the earth." So this midrash suggests that truth is so important and so connected to the essence of divinity that it is the divine seal, our direct connection to divinity. The problem with truth, though, is that we're all limited in our perspective, in our awareness, and in our understanding, even of our own desires. We make assumptions all the time. And so this got me thinking about the parable of the blind men and the elephant. A group of blind men heard that a strange animal called an elephant had been brought to the town, but none of them were aware of its shape and form. Out of curiosity, they said, "We must inspect and know it by touch, of which we are capable." So they sought it out, and when they found it, they groped about it. The first person whose hand landed on the trunk said, "This being is like a thick snake." For another whose hand reached its ear, it seemed like a kind of fan. And for another whose hand was upon its leg, thought that the elephant is like a pillar, like a tree trunk. The blind man who placed his hand upon the side of the elephant said, "It's a wall." Another who felt its tail described it as a rope. And the last one felt its tusk, stating the elephant is that which is hard, smooth, and like a spear. The parable goes on to describe how each man was so certain of his truth that they came to blows. They were not able to accept the other person's version of truth, or see that maybe truth was bigger than what they initially saw. So as with the parable, sometimes truth is hidden. Sometimes it's the truth about what stands before us, like the elephant. And sometimes it's the truth of what's within us. Like, how well do we really know ourselves, our motivations for something, or our desires, or our feelings? So back to the Parsha. Rebecca had a difficult pregnancy, and she asked God what was happening. And she was told in chapter 25, verse 23, Yud-He Vav-He said to her, 2 people are in your belly. 2 nations shall branch off from each other as they emerge from your womb. 1 people shall prevail over the other. The elder shall serve the younger. So maybe Rebecca is using the only means that she can think of to ensure that the prophecy is fulfilled. The consequence, of course, is Esau's cry and anguish. Deception causes pain. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe deception always causes pain. It certainly did in this case. And it seems to me that by being more aware of our personal truths and then having the humility to be open to the possibility that we don't know the whole truth, we can be more truthful and bring that into the world. And as we do so, we are, I think, participating in Tikkun Olam, in repair of the world. So I invite you to take your seat. Please be as comfortable as you can be. Check your posture. We want to sit with our backs as straight as is reasonable, our chests broad and open, so that our lungs can really do what they do. And if you'd rather be in a different position, that's just fine. You don't have to sit. If standing or walking or lying down is better for you. Whatever position we're in, we want to be alert and relaxed. And if you're so inclined, you might be interested in taking a few cleansing breaths. Really feeling grounded with whatever part of your body is touching something solid. Could be your feet, your bottom, as your head is lifting toward the heavens. And we'll sit in silence for about 10 minutes. So I invite you to begin to deepen your breath very slowly and very gently. Begin to come back to the room. And as you're doing so, I'm going to read a piece that I think is quite revelatory from Sheila Pels-Weinberg. Here is about a story about telling the story that I used to introduce mindfulness meditation to a group of rabbis shortly after the first Obama election. I was telling a story I had told a few times before, and I understood it as a good description of the nature of the mind, specifically about how the mind tells itself stories in order to understand reality that actually may have little relation to the truth. Sometimes, especially after being in silence without outside stimulation for a while, we come to realize that the mind has a mind of its own. I, whoever that is certainly not controlling my thoughts. The story was about an experience I had on an extended silent retreat shortly after 9/11. I was walking past the home of the lead meditation teacher who lived next door to the retreat center. I noticed an American flag waving on his property. I thought to myself, how strange. I can't imagine this highly esteemed spiritual teacher is going to succumb to the knee-jerk patriotic display of the flag in the post-9/11 universe. I started trying to explain to myself what this might mean, including the desire to fit in with the rural population that surrounded the retreat center, to purchase some credibility in the eyes of the neighbors, and so on. I had it fairly well rationalized when, on the way back from my walk, I noticed that the flag was not on my teacher's home at all, but someone else's. That story is one illustration among many that at the end of the talk to the rabbi, that story was one illustration among many. And at the end of the talk to the rabbis, a young woman rabbi from the Midwest approached me looking extremely upset and angry. She said that she did not appreciate the trashing of the flag implied in my story. She added that she was an American and had voted for John McCain, which she considered to be a perfectly responsible choice as a Jew, a rabbi, and an American. My story made her feel like she did not belong in this particular community if she were not an Obama voter. I was taken aback. My own assumptions in politics had clearly sifted through what I thought was a spiritual teaching experience. I knew enough in that moment to say that I was really sorry to have upset her and that I would like to give the matter some more thought. I later apologized for my bias and for my lack of awareness. I truly wanted her to feel comfortable in this group. I challenged myself to truly respect someone whose politics were that different from mine. Pirkei Avot 4:1 asks us, who is wise? Then it answers, the one who learns from everyone. It was not pleasant to have a mirror brought up to my face, which revealed my own blind spots. I still think it is a good story, but I am continually challenged to tell it in a way that does not humiliate or belittle those with different views from my own. A teacher has to be open, wide, embracing. A teacher has to have open, wide, embracing arms to every student that shows up and sincerely wants to learn. This particular student did want to learn. She stayed around and did learn. I learned from her, I suspect, even more than she from me.